February 14, 1970. Seamount Peninsula, South Vietnam. Senior Captain Nguyen Van Tao grips his radio handset so tightly his knuckles turn white. Around him, the Mekong Delta stretches endlessly black water, darker jungle, and a moonless sky that swallows everything beyond 10 meters. His company 97 men of the 303rd NVA Battalion moves in disciplined silence through knee-deep swamp water. They've been marching for 6 hours. The radio crackles. A voice speaks in perfect northern Vietnamese dialect, the accent unmistakable Hanoi command structure, senior officer tone, proper military terminology. Comrade Captain, this is Battalion Forward. We have intelligence of American patrol boat disabled on Song Ong Dak Canal. Grid reference Tango 742. Enemy is requesting extraction. Heavy weapons present. Priority target acknowledge. Thou's heart races. An American patrol boat. Stranded. This is the opportunity every NVA officer dreams of. Capturing U.S. equipment, taking prisoners. Propaganda victory? He acknowledges the order immediately. Battalion Forward, this is 3rd Company. We copy. Moving to engage. Out. His radio man looks at him with barely concealed excitement. The political officer smiles. This will be a story told in Hanoi. Promotions, medals, perhaps even a photograph with General Giap himself. Thao adjusts the route. His lead platoon moves northeast toward the coordinates. The canal is only 2 kilometers away. They increase pace, water splashing against their legs, AK-47s held high to keep the actions dry. Somewhere ahead, wounded Americans wait helplessly. The jungle opens into a wide clearing beside the canal. Moonlight breaks through scattered clouds, illuminating the waterway. And there, it is, a swift boat, listing slightly, engine silent, running lights off. Exactly as described. Too perfect. The thought flashes through Tao's mind for exactly 1 second before the world explodes. Claymore mines, 15 of them, daisy-chained in overlapping arcs detonate simultaneously. 700 steel balls per mine. Over 10,000 projectiles shred the first 2 platoons in less than 2 seconds. The sound is apocalyptic. Men don't scream. They simply cease to exist in the metallic hurricane. Machine gun fire erupts from 3 positions. Stoner 63 light machine guns, 200-round drums, cyclic rate of 1,000 rounds per minute. Tracers cut through the darkness like laser beams. The swift boat's engine roars to life. Twin 50 caliber machine guns mounted on the deck open fire. The disabled boat was bait. From the water itself, muzzle flashes. Men painted in green and black camouflage rise from the shallows like creatures from nightmare. They've been submerged, breathing through reeds, waiting in absolute silence for over 90 minutes. Tao tries to give orders, but his radio is dead severed by shrapnel. His political officer is gone, literally vaporized. His company disintegrates. Men run in every direction. Some try to return fire but can't identify targets. The Americans are everywhere and nowhere. Ghosts with machine guns. 11 minutes. That's how long the engagement lasts. When the firing stops, Tao finds himself alone in chest-deep water, clutching his AK-47, bleeding from 7 different shrapnel wounds. Around him, 53 bodies float face down in the canal. The swift boat is gone. The machine gun positions are silent. The jungle swallows the last helicopter sounds. He looks at his radio, still clipped to his dead radio man's body. The realization hits him like a physical blow. The voice on the radio wasn't Battalion Forward. It was never Battalion Forward. The Americans had spoken to him in his own language, using his own codes, exploiting his own eagerness. They had reached into his mind, understood his desires, and used them to murder him. By dawn, when NVA reinforcements finally arrive, they find Thao sitting on the muddy bank, staring at nothing, surrounded by the dead. He doesn't respond to questions. Medical officers will later diagnose severe psychological shock. He keeps repeating the same phrase, over and over. They knew. They knew everything. The Americans were never there. No bodies. No equipment left behind. No prisoners taken. Only ghosts and the dead they left behind. This wasn't war as Thao understood it. This was something else entirely. This was Navy SEALs. If you want to hear more stories of elite warriors who dominated the Vietnam War, subscribe now, because what you're about to learn will change how you understand modern special operations forever. Chapter 1. The Men with Green Faces. To understand how Navy SEALs became the most feared American unit in Vietnam, you have to go back to 1962, when President John F. Kennedy authorized the formation of SEAL Teams 1 and 2. SEAL stood for Sea, Air, and Land, the 3 environments these men would dominate. But in Vietnam, they would add a 4th, the human mind itself. SEAL Team 1 deployed to Vietnam in 1966, operating from the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado, California. These weren't ordinary soldiers. The selection process was, and remains, one of the most brutal in military history. Hell Week alone eliminated 75% of candidates. 5.5 days of continuous physical torture, sleep deprivation, and psychological stress designed to find men who simply would not quit. But physical toughness wasn't enough. SEALs needed intelligence, adaptability, the ability to think like the enemy, predict his moves, exploit his weaknesses. They needed to be warriors and strategists simultaneously. The men who made it through training arrived in Vietnam with a unique mindset. They didn't see the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese army as faceless enemies. They studied them, learned their language, understood their culture, analyzed their tactics, and then systematically dismantled them. The primary operational area for SEAL Team 1 was the Mekong Delta, and Rung Sat Special Zone minus 196 square miles of tidal mangrove swamp that the Vietnamese called Rung Sat, meaning Forest of Assassins. The Viet Cong had controlled this territory for years. It was their sanctuary, their supply route, their fortress, until the SEALs arrived. The first SEAL platoons operated in squads of 7 men. Think about that. 7 Americans dropped into enemy-controlled jungle where thousands of VC fighters operated freely. Conventional military wisdom said it was suicide. The SEALs proved conventional wisdom wrong. Their doctrine was built on 3 principles: surprise, violence of action, and immediate withdrawal. They didn't hold territory. They didn't engage in prolonged firefights. They struck like lightning, inflicted maximum casualties, and vanished before the enemy could react. But it was their 4th unofficial principle that truly terrified the enemy: psychological warfare. SEALs understood something that conventional forces often missed. In guerrilla warfare, perception matters more than reality. The VC had built their entire strategy on making American soldiers afraid: ambushes, booby traps, snipers that struck without warning. They weaponized fear. The SEALs weaponized it back, with interest. They wore tiger-striped camouflage and painted their faces in green and black patterns. In the darkness, with faces obscured, they looked inhuman. VC villagers began calling them Ma Rung, jungle ghosts. Some believed they were spirits, not men at all. The SEALs encouraged this belief. They operated almost exclusively at night, during monsoons, in conditions where the enemy felt safe. They moved through water like crocodiles, completely silent, using specialized coral booties that left no footprints. They could be 3 feet away from an enemy sentry and remain completely invisible. And they carried weapons that seemed impossible. The Stoner 63 light machine gun, a revolutionary design with a 200-round drum magazine that fired 1,000 rounds per minute but weighed less than an M60. The suppressed Hush Puppy pistol that could kill sentries without making more sound than a hand clap. The CAR-15, a shortened M16, perfect for close-quarters jungle combat. But their most devastating weapon was one the enemy never saw: intelligence. From the beginning, SEALs integrated signals intelligence into their operations. They didn't just patrol blindly. They intercepted enemy radio communications. They captured VC prisoners and interrogated them professionally, building comprehensive databases of enemy units, command structures, and operational patterns. They studied captured documents, letters, orders, maps. They debriefed defectors. They worked with Kit Carson's Scout's former VC, who switched sides and brought intimate knowledge of enemy tactics, and they learned to speak Vietnamese. This is where the deception began. By 1968, several SEAL operators had achieved functional fluency in Vietnamese. Others worked closely with ARVN interpreters embedded in their squads. They could listen to enemy radio communications in real time and understand not just the words, but the context, the tone, the unspoken meanings. And if they could understand the enemy's radio communications, they could do something far more powerful. They could mimic them. The first attempts were crude. SEALs would capture enemy radios and simply cause confusion by broadcasting false information. But they quickly realized they could do more than confuse. They could control. They could make the enemy do exactly what they wanted. Chapter 2. The Education of an Enemy. Rung Sat Special Zone. Petty Officer First Class Michael Iron Mike Thornton sits in a spider hole, completely submerged except for his eyes and nose, breathing through a reed. He's been motionless for 3 hours. Leeches cover his arms and legs. Fire ants crawl across his neck. He doesn't move. 15 meters away, a VC patrol passes. 6 men, AK-47s, moving with the confidence of fighters who own this jungle. They're laughing. One is smoking. They have no idea an American is close enough to touch them. Thornton watches them pass. He could kill them all. Stoner 63 in his hands. 30-round magazine loaded, safety off. But that's not his mission. His mission is to learn. For 2 weeks, his 6-man SEAL squad has been observing this particular VC cell. They know where they sleep, where they cache weapons, where they meet contacts, what routes they use, what time they patrol. But more importantly, they've been listening. The squad's radio man, a Vietnamese-American SEAL named Tommy Nguyen, has been intercepting every radio transmission the VC make. He's learned their call signs, their encryption patterns, their radio procedures, their commander's voice. Tonight, Tommy will use that knowledge. The VC patrol disappears into the jungle. Thornton counts to 300, then rises from the water like a swamp creature. Mud and vegetation slide off his tiger stripe uniform. He hand signals to his squad. They converge silently. Tommy sets up the captured VC Radio A, Chinese Type 102, taken during a raid 3 weeks ago. He's modified it, improved the antenna, boosted the signal. He puts on the headset and begins transmitting. His voice is perfect, not just the language, the accent, the tone, the speech patterns of a VC company commander. He's been practicing for weeks. Second cell, this is cell commander. American patrol spotted moving south on canal route. Heavy weapons, estimate 15 men. Move to blocking position Alpha 7 to intercept. Acknowledge. Then a response. Cell commander, second cell copies, moving to Alpha 7. Out. The SEALs move. They know exactly where blocking position Alpha 7 is. They've scouted it. A narrow canal with thick vegetation on both sides. Perfect for an ambush. Which is exactly what the VC are thinking. Except the VC will be the ones ambushed. The SEAL squad reaches the position first. They set up in textbook formation, L-shaped ambush, Claymore mines positioned to create overlapping kill zones, machine gun at the corner of the L for maximum enfilade fire. Thornton lies prone behind a fallen log, Stoner 63 resting on the wood, 200-round drum locked in. He controls his breathing, slows his heart rate, enters the zone where time dilates and everything becomes crystal clear. 40 minutes later, the VC arrive, 12 men, moving tactically, weapons ready. They're expecting to ambush Americans. Instead, they walk into a kill zone designed by men who've studied ambush warfare to the level of science. Thornton waits until all 12 are in the zone. Perfect discipline. Then the squad leader initiates. 4 Claymore mines detonate. The night turns into a strobe light of explosions and steel fragments. Before the sound even fades, Thornton's Stoner opens up. 40 rounds in 4 seconds. Controlled bursts. Each burst targeting a different zone of the kill area. 8 seconds. That's how long the engagement lasts. 12 VC dead. 0 SEAL casualties. 0 rounds fired at the SEALs. But here's what makes this operation legendary. The SEALs don't leave immediately. Tommy gets back on the radio. Uses the same voice. Calm. Professional. This is Cell Commander. American patrol eliminated. 12 enemy KIA. No friendly casualties. Moving to fallback position. Out. Then they vanish. By the time other VC units arrive, they find their comrades dead. Killed by an American patrol that somehow knew exactly where to set up and whose weapons caused casualties inconsistent with a mobile patrol. Confusion, suspicion, paranoia. The psychological seeds are planted. Over the next 6 months, SEAL Team 1 conducts 17 operations using similar tactics. Radio deception, false orders, misdirection. Each time, the deception is more sophisticated. Each time, the VC casualties are higher. And each time, the surviving VC ask the same questions. How did the Americans know? Who gave away our position? Is there a spy among us? By mid-1968, this paranoia is endemic. VC units begin suspecting each other. Radio discipline breaks down as commanders question whether transmissions are genuine. Response times slow as units hesitate to follow orders that might be American deception. The SEALs have done more than kill enemy fighters. They've broken the enemy's trust in their own command structure. Chapter 3. Operation Crimson Tide, March 1969. Mekong Delta, near Ben Tre Province. Intelligence reports indicate a major VC tax collection operation scheduled for March 15th. The Viet Cong run a sophisticated financial system. They tax villages, confiscate rice, collect donations. This money funds their operations, purchases weapons, pays fighters. A SEAL, Team 1 platoon, led by Lieutenant James Hawk Peterson, receives the mission: intercept the tax collectors. Capture the money, eliminate the collection team. But Peterson has a better idea. Why just eliminate one tax collection team when you can destroy the entire cell? The platoon spends a week on preparation. They intercept radio communications and identify the collection team's radio frequencies and call signs. They capture a low-level VC courier during a night raid, not to kill him, but to interrogate him. They learn the procedures, the codes, the verification methods. They learn that after collection, the team radios headquarters with an all-clear signal before moving to the extraction point. Peterson's plan is elegant. Let the collection team do their job. Wait until they radio the all-clear, then hijack the radio signal and modify the extraction point. Redirect them into a SEAL ambush. March 15th, 0300 hours, the 7-man SEAL squad inserts via PBR patrol boat river into a canal 3 kilometers from the target village. They're wearing tiger stripe fatigues, faces painted green-black, carrying enough firepower to destroy a platoon. Peterson carries a Car-15 with an XM-148 40mm grenade launcher. His radioman, Petty Officer Mike Chen, Chinese-American, fluent in Vietnamese, carries the captured VC radio and the standard ANPRC-25. 2 SEALs carry Stoner 63S. 1 carries an M60 machine gun. 1 carries a suppressed Swedish K submachine gun for silent sentry elimination. The 7th carries additional ammunition and claymore mines. They move through the jungle like shadows, no talking. Hand signals only. They've trained together for so long that they think as one organism. By 0500, they're in position. A tree line overlooking the planned extraction point. They know this location because Chen intercepted the original radio transmission 2 days ago. The VC think this information is secure. It's not. The SEALs dig in. Not foxholes hides, shallow depressions covered with vegetation, invisible from 10 feet away. They set up claymore mines in an arc covering the approach route. Peterson positions the machine guns to create a crossfire. Then they wait. 1100 hours. Chen's radio crackles. The tax collection team has finished their work. They're carrying an estimated $200,000 in piastres and captured rice vouchers. They radio headquarters. Mission complete. Moving to extraction point. All clear. Chen waits exactly 90 seconds, long enough to seem like command processing time. Then he transmits. His Vietnamese is flawless. More than that, he uses the exact speech patterns of the senior VC commander whose voice they've recorded and studied. Collection team, this is headquarters. Extraction point compromised. American patrol spotted near original location. New extraction point, grid reference Delta 395, confirm. A pause. Peterson's heart pounds. If the collection team questions the order, if they sense something wrong, the operation fails. Then, headquarters, collection team copies new extraction point. Moving now. Out. Chen looks at Peterson and nods. The trap is set. The new extraction point is a clearing beside a narrow canal, surrounded by thick, jungle-perfect ambush terrain that the SEALs selected and prepared 3 days ago. The collection team will arrive by boat, expecting friendly forces. Instead, they'll find 7 ghosts. 1240 hours. The sound of an outboard motor. A sampan comes into view, low in the water from the weight of money and rice. 6 VC fighters, AK-47s, relaxed. They've successfully completed their mission. They're thinking about food, rest, maybe cigarettes. They don't notice the infrared tripwire 20 meters before the kill zone. When they cross it, a small radio transmitter sends a signal to Peterson's receiver. He knows they're coming before they know they've arrived. The sampan enters the clearing. The VC navigator cuts the engine, letting momentum carry them to the bank. 1 fighter stands up, securing a rope to a tree root. Peterson waits. All 6 must be in the kill zone. Perfect discipline. The last VC steps out of the boat. Peterson presses the claymore clacker. 3 mines detonate simultaneously. The sampan disintegrates. The VC fighters don't have time to scream. The clearing fills with gray smoke and the metallic stench of blood. The SEALs move immediately. 2 operators secure the perimeter. 2 recover the money. Minus $217,000 in Vietnamese piastres. Over $40,000 in US dollars, detailed ledgers showing months of financial records. 1 SEAL photographs everything for intelligence. Chen destroys the VC radio. 7 minutes from detonation to extraction. They're already moving toward the canal when Peterson hears it. The unmistakable whoop 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 of helicopters. Not American helicopters, DC reinforcements. Somehow, despite radio silence, backup is coming. Peterson makes the call instantly. They can't reach this canal before the helicopters arrive. They need support. Chen switches to the PRC-25. Seawolf, this is Neptune 7. Troops in contact. Request immediate fire support, grid Delta 395. Enemy helicopters inbound. Over. Neptune 7, this is Seawolf 3-1. 2 Hueys, 3 minutes out. Mark your position. Over. Peterson pops yellow smoke. The SEALs form a defensive perimeter in thick vegetation. The VC helicopter Soviet Mi-8s, stolen from ARV, encircle the clearing. Troops are rappelling down. Then the Seawolves arrive. 2 UH-1B helicopter gunships, bristling with M60 machine guns and 2.75-inch rocket pods. They don't bother with radio protocol. They see the yellow smoke, see the enemy helicopters, and engage immediately. Rockets streak across the sky. 1 Mi-8 explodes in midair. The second tries to evade, drops too fast, crashes into the jungle. The VC troops on the ground scatter. The Seawolves make another pass. M60s ripping through the jungle. Peterson's squad uses the chaos to reach the canal. Their PBR is waiting, engines hot. They load the money, the intelligence, and themselves in under 60 seconds. The PBR's twin 50 caliber machine guns open up, suppressing any pursuit. They're doing 40 knots down the canal before the VC even organize a response. By 1400 hours, the SEALs are back at base. 0 casualties. 6 VC KIA, over $250,000 captured. Intelligence documents that will compromise dozens of VC financial operations. But the real impact isn't the money, it's the message. The VC command realizes that somehow the Americans intercepted their communications, understood their confrontation procedures, and used their own system against them. They can't trust their radios. They can't trust their codes. They can't even trust their own commander's voice. Chapter 4. The Ghost Frequency. By late 1969, Navy SEALs have conducted over 50 radio deception operations. The success rate is extraordinary. Over 90% of deception-based ambushes result in complete enemy force destruction, with 0 SEAL casualties. But the NVA are learning. After the disastrous losses, NVA signals intelligence officers begin analyzing the pattern. They recognize that American forces are exploiting their radio communications. They implement countermeasures, changing frequencies more often, using more sophisticated codes, implementing verification procedures. One unit in particular becomes obsessed with stopping the SEALs, the 303rd NVA Battalion, operating in the Cao Peninsula. Their commander, Senior Colonel Tran Van Dong, is a veteran of Dien Bien Phu, one of the NVA's most brilliant tactical minds. Dong studies every SEAL operation he can document. He analyzes the patterns, the tactics, the timing, and he develops a theory. The Americans are using captured radios and Vietnamese-speaking operators to impersonate NVA commanders. His countermeasure is simple but effective. Authentication codes that change daily, known only to battalion-level commanders and above. Any radio transmission regarding troop movements must include the code. Without it, unit commanders are ordered to ignore the transmission. For 3 months, SEAL radio deception operations in Dong's area of operations fail. His units don't respond to false orders. The authentication system works. But Dong makes one critical mistake. He underestimates how thoroughly the SEALs infiltrate enemy infrastructure. Lieutenant Commander Roy Boehm, leading a SEAL platoon operating in Cao Mau, recognizes the problem. His radio deception attempts are being ignored. He needs those authentication codes, so he goes hunting for them. January 1970. Intelligence indicates that Colonel Dong maintains a forward command post in a village called Tom Heap, deep in VC-controlled territory. The command post includes a signals detachment with radios, codebooks, and Boehm believes the authentication codes. Boehm's plan is audacious even by SEAL standards. Raid the command post, capture the codes, and be gone before the NVA even knows they were there. Not a combat operation, a theft. January 23rd, 0200 hours. 6 SEALs insert via helicopter at a landing zone 3 kilometers from Tam Heap. They hump through rice paddies and jungle, moving in complete silence. Each man carries suppressed weapons, hush puppy pistols, suppressed Swedish K submachine guns, claymore mines, 60 pounds of gear per man. They reach the village perimeter at 030. Through starlight scopes, Boehm observes the command post, a concrete building, 3 guards outside, lights visible through windows. The plan is surgical. 2 SEALs eliminate the guards silently. The remaining 4 breach the building, neutralize anyone inside, grab documents and radios, exfiltrate. 0400 hours. The assault begins. 2 SEALs designated Terminators move like liquid shadow toward the guards. Suppressed pistols rise. 2 shots. The guards collapse, dead before their bodies hit the ground. The 3rd guard turns, opens his mouth to shout. A SEAL knife enters below his sternum, angled upward, into his heart. He dies silently. 4 SEALs breach the door. Inside, 2 NVA radio operators sit at desks, wearing headsets, monitoring communications. They don't have time to reach for weapons. Suppressed Swedish K rounds, minus 9 mm Sasonic punch through their torsos. They slump forward onto their radios. Boehm enters last. He goes straight for the documents. On the desk, exactly what he needs. A codebook. Daily authentication codes for the next 30 days. Radio frequencies, call signs. Verification procedures. He stuffs them into a waterproof bag. The entire operation takes 4 minutes. 6 NVA dead, 0 shots loud enough to wake the village. The SEALs vanish into the jungle. By the time NVA security discovers the bodies at 0600, the SEALs are 15 kilometers away, calling for helicopter extraction. Dong realizes what happened immediately. The Americans didn't raid his command post for intelligence. They raided it to steal his authentication system. His countermeasure has been compromised. He immediately changes all codes and implements a new system: verbal authentication questions that require specific knowledge only genuine commanders would have. But it's too late. The SEALs already have 30 days of authentication codes, and they're about to use them. Chapter 5, The Perfect Trap, February 14th, 1970. The operation that opens this documentary. With Dong's authentication codes in hand, Lieutenant Commander Boehm plans the most ambitious deception operation in SEAL Team 1 history. His target, an entire NVA company, over 90 combat-experienced fighters. The bait, a disabled Swift boat. Intelligence reports indicate that the 3rd Battalion has orders to capture American equipment whenever possible, for propaganda purposes, for intelligence value, for the morale boost of defeating Americans in direct combat. Boehm's plan exploits this directive. He coordinates with Swiftboat Squadron 1 to provide a boat and crew willing to play bait. He selects a location on the Song Ong Dock Canal wide enough for the Swiftboat to operate, surrounded by jungle that provides multiple SEAL hide positions, with good underwater approaches for infiltration. The operation requires perfect coordination. The Swiftboat must appear disabled, engine off, listing slightly, lights showing distress, but be capable of immediate combat operations. The SEAL squad must remain hidden underwater for up to 2 hours while enemy forces approach. Supporting gunships must remain over the horizon, ready to respond but not visible enough to spook the enemy. And the radio deception must be perfect. February 14th, 1908. The 7-man SEAL squad inserts into the canal 3 kilometers from the ambush site. They're carrying full combat loads plus specialized equipment, underwater breathing reeds, coral booties for silent underwater movement, additional claymore mines, and 3 Stoner 63 machine guns with 200-round drums. They reach the ambush site at 20:30. The Swiftboat is already in position, playing its role perfectly, one engine running rough, lights flickering, crew visible on deck looking concerned. The SEALs position claymore mines in 3 overlapping arcs, 15 mines total. Each mine contains 700 steel balls. The overlapping arcs create a kill zone where every square meter will be hit by multiple fragmentation patterns. Then they submerge. Breathing through hollow reeds cut from bamboo, the SEALs lie in waist-deep water, covered by aquatic vegetation, completely invisible. Leeches attach to their skin. Water snakes slide past. Fire ants float on debris and crawl across their faces. They don't move. 2,200 hours. The radioman Chen, speaking perfect Vietnamese, begins the deception. Using the captured NVA radio and the authentication code stolen from Dong's command post, he transmits on the 3rd Battalion frequency. 3rd Company, this is Battalion Forward, authentication code Red 7 Tiger. We have intelligence of American patrol boat disabled on Song Ong Dock Canal, grid reference Tango 742, enemy requesting extraction. Heavy weapons present. Priority target, move to engage. Acknowledge, over. The authentication code is correct. The voice is correct. The procedure is correct. Senior Captain Nguyen Van Tao, commanding 3rd Company, responds immediately. Battalion Forward, this is 3rd Company. Authentication acknowledged, we copy. Moving to engage, out. The trap is set. Boehm, submerged in black water with only his eyes above surface, watches through a starlight scope. He sees the NVA company approach nearly 100 men, moving in tactical formation, weapons ready. He waits. The ambush must be perfect. All enemy forces must be in the kill zone. The NVA reach the clearing. They see the Swiftboat. Officers issue commands. The company begins to deploy, establishing a base of fire, preparing to assault the boat. Tao raises his radio to coordinate the attack. Boehm presses the claymore clacker. 15 mines detonate in sequence, each a fraction of a second apart. The effect is apocalyptic. Over 10,000 steel balls shred the first 2 NVA platoons in less than 3 seconds. Bodies disintegrate, vegetation is stripped from trees. The sound echoes across kilometers. Before the shockwave dissipates, the SEALs rise from the water. 3 Stoner 63s open fire. 200-round drums, cyclic rate of 1,000 revolutions per minute, controlled bursts. Tracers cut through darkness like laser beams. Every burst is precisely aimed, center mass, headshots, suppression fire. The Swiftboat's twin 50 caliber machine guns join the symphony. Heavy rounds punch through multiple bodies, shred equipment, destroy cover. The NVA company breaks. Officers try to rally their men, but command structure has collapsed. Sergeants are dead. Radiomen are dead. Half the company is dead or dying within the first 30 seconds. Some NAVA try to return fire, but they're shooting at muzzle flashes without clear targets. The SEALs are dispersed, partially concealed, constantly shifting position. The one-sided slaughter lasts 11 minutes. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stops. The SEALs withdraw underwater, moving along the canal to a pre-planned extraction point 2 kilometers away. The swift boat's engines roar to full power. The boat speeds down the canal at maximum velocity. Seawolf helicopter gunships arrive on station, establishing a screen between the ambush site and potential NVA reinforcements. By 15 hours only 75 minutes after the ambush, the SEALs are back at base. They're eating hot food, writing after-action reports, cleaning weapons. In the jungle, Senior Captain Thao sits alone, among the dead, psychologically shattered, repeating, "They knew. They knew everything." Colonel Dong receives the casualty report at 0200, 53 KIA, 22 WIA, 12 missing. His company has been effectively destroyed. But worse than the casualties is the implication. The Americans used proper authentication codes. They knew his frequencies. They understood his procedures well enough to perfectly impersonate his command staff. The Americans have penetrated his operational security at the deepest possible level. Within a week, Dong implements radio silence for all tactical operations. He reverts to courier-based communications. Slower, less efficient, but impossible for the Americans to intercept and exploit. The SEALs have achieved something extraordinary. They've forced the enemy to abandon technological communication and revert to ancient methods. They've degraded enemy capabilities without firing a shot at the communication system itself. Chapter 6. The Cost of Fear. The psychological impact of SEAL radio deception operations extends far beyond destroyed companies and captured equipment. By mid-1970, captured NVA documents and prisoner interrogations reveal the depth of the paranoia. NVA commanders openly discuss American ghosts who steal voices. VC propaganda warns fighters about radio demons who lead units into death traps. Some NVA units refuse to follow radio orders entirely. In at least 3 documented cases, NVA officers are executed by their own command structure for failing to follow legitimate orders, because they suspected the orders were American deception. The communist command structure fractures under the weight of suspicion. But there's a darker side to this success. The SEALs conducting these operations are operating under immense stress. They're not just soldiers, they're actors, linguists, psychological warfare specialists, and combat operators simultaneously. The level of preparation required for each operation is exhausting, and the operations are extraordinarily dangerous. In March 1970, a SEAL squad attempting a radio deception operation in the Rung Sat is ambushed by an NVA unit that didn't take the bait. 3 SEALs are wounded. The squad barely escapes, calling in gunship support and fighting a running retreat to the extraction point. In May 1970, an operation goes catastrophically wrong when the NVA recognize a SEAL radio operator's voice from a previous engagement. They don't take the bait, they reverse-track the radio signal and send a company to eliminate the SEAL squad. The SEALs have to abort, destroy their equipment, and exfiltrate under heavy fire. 1 SEAL is killed. 2 are wounded. The operations continue, but the risks escalate. Lieutenant Commander Boehm, after 18 months of continuous combat operations, is rotated back to the United States. In interviews years later, he'll describe the psychological toll. "We were playing a game with their minds, but we were also playing it with our own. Every operation, you wondered, what if they know? What if this time, we're the ones being tricked?" The NVA are learning. Slowly, but learning. By late 1970, sophisticated NVA signals intelligence units begin deploying specialized anti-deception teams. These teams monitor radio communications, analyze speech patterns, use technical analysis to identify American-operated radios. The cat-and-mouse game becomes more complex, but the SEALs adapt faster. They begin using multiple layers of deception fake transmissions designed to be detected and ignored, followed by secondary transmissions that seem more legitimate. They vary their voice operators using different ARVN interpreters and Vietnamese American SEALs to prevent voice recognition. They deliberately make small mistakes in their transmissions, minor accent variations, slight procedural errors that make the deceptions seem like legitimate enemy communications rather than perfect imitations. The psychological warfare becomes weaponized chess, and the SEALs are grand masters. Chapter 7. Operation Twilight Mirror, June 1971. The final major radio deception operation of the war. By this point, SEAL Team 1 has rotated new platoons into Vietnam. The older operators, men like Boehm, Thornton, Chen, have returned to the United States. The new generation of SEALs inherits the tactics, the lessons, and the legend. One of these new operators is Lieutenant Daniel Foster, the Vietnamese linguist who spent 2 years studying at the Defense Language Institute before joining SEAL training. His Vietnamese is so fluent that native speakers can't identify him as American. Foster receives intelligence about a high-value target, Major Pham Van Dong, Chief of Signals Intelligence for the NVA 5th Division. Dong, no relation to Colonel Tran Ban Dong, is responsible for counter-deception operations. He's the man trying to stop SEAL radio tricks. Foster's mission: use radio deception to capture or kill the man hunting the deceivers. The operation is meta-warfare, using deception to destroy the anti-deception specialist. Intelligence indicates that Major Dong travels with a small security detachment, 12 men, and moves between NVA communication stations to personally audit their security procedures. He's paranoid, careful, brilliant, but he has one vulnerability: ego. Foster's plan exploits this. He'll use radio deception to create a scenario where Dong believes he's catching the Americans in the act. June 17, 2200 hours. Foster's squad begins broadcasting poorly executed radio deceptions transmissions that use almost correct procedures, but with small mistakes that a trained signals intelligence officer would catch. Wrong authentication codes, slightly incorrect call signs, verbal tics that don't match the commander being impersonated. They broadcast on frequencies they know Dong's security teams monitor. Over 3 nights, they conduct these failed deceptions, each one slightly better than the last, as if the Americans are learning and improving. Then comes the trap. June 20th. Foster broadcasts what appears to be another learning attempt, a radio order directing an NVA patrol to a specific location, using authentication procedures that are 90% correct, but with one subtle flaw. The transmission is designed to make Dong think the Americans are close to perfecting their technique. If I can ambush their team while they're broadcasting, I can capture their equipment, their codes, maybe even prisoners. It's bait designed specifically for a hunter. Dong takes it. He personally leads a 30-man force to the area where the transmission originated, planning to ambush the SEAL radio team. Except there is no SEAL team at the transmission site. Foster was broadcasting from a remote location using a high-powered transmitter positioned 3 kilometers away. The transmission site Dong approaches is empty. Jungle. But it's not unoccupied. 12 SEALs are there, waiting. With claymore mines, machine guns, and supporting helicopter gunships on station, Dong walks into an ambush designed to kill the ambusher. 2340 hours. June 20th, 1971. Dong's force approaches the supposed transmission site, moving tactically, expecting to find Americans unprepared. Instead, they find a kill zone. 8 claymores detonate. The SEALs open fire with overwhelming violence. Stoner 63s, M60s, Car 15s, cyclic rate of fire so intense it sounds like a single continuous explosion. The engagement lasts 9 minutes. 23 NVA KIA, 7 captured, including wounded but alive, Major Pham Van Dong himself. Foster approaches the captured officer. In perfect Vietnamese, he says, "Major Dong, you've been hunting us for a year. Now you understand. We're not just voices on the radio. We're ghosts, and ghosts can't be caught." Dong is extracted by helicopter, interrogated, and provides intelligence that compromises dozens of NVA communication security procedures. But more important than the intelligence is the message. The NVA's best anti-deception specialist was captured using the very deception techniques he was trying to stop. The psychological impact reverberates through the entire NVA command structure. Chapter 8. Legacy of Ghosts. By 1972, as American ground forces begin withdrawing from Vietnam, SEAL Team 1 conducts its final radio deception operations. The statistics are staggering. Over 70 confirmed radio deception ambushes, estimated 800-plus enemy KIA directly attributable to these operations. Countless more casualties from enemy paranoia, friendly fire incidents caused by command confusion, and degraded operational effectiveness. But numbers don't capture the full impact. The SEALs fundamentally changed how the enemy operated. They forced technologically inferior but tactically sophisticated forces to abandon their most effective communication methods. They created institutional paranoia that degraded command effectiveness at every level. They proved that in guerrilla warfare, controlling the enemy's perception of reality is more powerful than controlling territory. The tactics developed in Vietnam became foundational to modern special ops. Today's SEALs, Delta Force, SAS, and other elite units use refined versions of the same principles: signals intelligence, exploitation, enemy impersonation, psychological operations integrated with direct action. But the Vietnam-era SEALs operated with a level of risk and audacity that's almost impossible to imagine today. No satellite communications, no drones, no real-time intelligence feeds, just small teams of men deep in enemy territory, playing deadly games with an enemy that outnumbered them 100 to 1. They won because they were smarter, because they trained harder, because they thought deeper, and because they understood something fundamental about human psychology: fear is more powerful than bullets. When you make the enemy afraid to trust his own commanders, afraid to use his own equipment, afraid of his own shadows, you've won a victory that no amount of firepower can achieve. The Viet Cong called them Ma Rung jungle ghosts. The NVA called them Quang Nguoc water demons, but captured documents reveal another name, used in whispered conversations, in reports that officers were reluctant to file, Nhon Gioi Biet Non Gi Kua Lin Hon, the men who know the language of souls. Because the SEALs didn't just speak Vietnamese. They spoke the deeper language of fear, trust, and psychological control. They spoke it fluently, and the enemy had no defense. Epilogue: the men behind the voices years after the war. Veterans of SEAL Team 1 gathered at reunions, traded stories, remembered brothers lost. Lieutenant Commander Roy Boehm, who planned Operation Crimson Tide and the authentication code theft, would later write, "We didn't just fight the enemy. We got inside his head. We made him doubt everything. That's a weapon you can't counter with armor or fortifications." Petty Officer Mike Chen, the Vietnamese-American radioman whose voice lured dozens of enemy units to their deaths, struggled with PTSD for decades. In a rare interview in 1998, he said, "I used my ancestors' language to kill my ancestors' people. I know it was war. I know we were fighting communism. But sometimes, late at night, I hear those voices on the radio, and I wonder, did they know, in their last moments, that the voice they trusted was mine?" Lieutenant Daniel Foster, who captured Major Pham Van Dong using the ultimate meta-deception, left the Navy in 1974 and became a professor of linguistics. He never spoke publicly about his Vietnam service until a documentary interview in 2003 when he said, "Language is power. Control someone's language, and you control their..." That's what we did. We didn't just win battles. We rewrote the enemy's reality, one radio transmission at a time. And Senior Captain Nguyen Van Thao, the NVA officer who survived the Swift boat ambush? He lived until 2011, dying in Hanoi at age 79. In his memoirs, published posthumously, he devoted an entire chapter to February 14, 1970. The chapter is titled, "The Night I Heard My Death." He wrote, "The Americans who spoke our language were not soldiers as I understood them. They were something else. They were artists of death, painters who used our fear as canvas. I survived that night, but part of my soul died there, in the black water among my brothers, listening to voices that should not have existed. The men with green faces, the jungle ghosts, the water demons, the Navy SEALs of Vietnam. They didn't just fight a war, they redefined what war could be. And half a century later, their legacy echoes through every special operations unit in the world, because they proved that the most devastating weapon isn't carried in your hands. It's the one you plant in your enemy's mind. If this story captivated you, subscribe now. There are dozens more untold stories of Vietnam's deadliest warrior snipers with impossible kill counts, reconnaissance teams that operated behind enemy lines for months, and weapons that changed warfare forever. Hit that subscribe button, and let's explore the shadows of history together.